Hello, welcome back to the Living in the Virtues of Your Strengths podcast. My name is Matt Engold. I'm your host. I'm a certified Catholic coach from Metanoia Catholic and also certified coach from Gallup CliftonStrengths. And here we see where the two merge, really, so we can learn how to live in the virtue of our strengths. Here we learn not just how to name, claim, and aim our strengths, but name, claim, tame, and then aim our strengths so that they can bring about the greatest possible glory to God. So very exciting here. That's one of the things, in fact, that is unique about this podcast. We not only focus on how to live in our gifts more and how to aim them towards a worthy cause, but we want that worthy cause to be beatitude, the coming of Christ's kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven. So I'm going to jump over to our presentation. We got all these people, a lot of people high in woo, and a lot of people that have it in their lesser themes that are on the podcast today. We want to hear from everybody. So we're going to create that space. Woo is really good at creating spaces for people to be open. More on that as we move forward. But let's jump into the PowerPoint presentation. We go ahead and share my screen. Okay, we're focused on woo today. And we're going to look at always the virtuous, vicious mindsets that are behind this, which can incline that woo to show up in a way that is building the kingdom or one that is detracting from the kingdom. Okay, we always like to start with the conversation with really an understanding of what it is. So we jump right into the Gallup definitions, that scorecard that they give us, that certification, and just a quick run through on this. So woo, I am being socially fast and outgoing. I will take the social initiative. They're not shy in the social environment. What do they bring? I bring energy and social situations. Okay. You might say they bring energy into social situations. I need one of the things that they require in order to be able to show up in the strength of their woo. I need social variability. All right. So new people in front of me. I love the thing that they value. I love meeting someone I haven't met before. I hate a static or shrinking social network. So I want an abundance of new people to meet, and I can't stand the opposite. The metaphor image for woo is breaking the ice or first to offer the handshake. Interesting. And finally, the barrier label. Ooh, this might sting a little bit. Phony or superficial. Okay. At this point in the podcast where we're getting ready to open it up. Yeah, Marty, I see you at number one giggling over there. It's like, yeah, I've been called superficial and phony before. Once or twice, right, Marty? Okay. So the question we go to, what drives the person with woo? Again, the things that distinguish the different talents in the Gallup polling, or the Gallup talents here, CliftonStrengths, is really where they desire to rest. So you can see some of the ways that they show up. There can be some overlapping, like with the input and the learner, but really where they desire to rest, that motivation is the main distinction. So where does woo desire to rest? What does winning look like for woo? What does the best case scenario look like for woo? Well, I got my word picture here. So if you're listening in, this is what I've got. All right. So the first picture I have is an image of people networking. They're business attire, and they've got little like battery life images over the top of them, and they're full, right? They're full of energy. They're at this networking event, and there's nothing being depleted. This is actually filling their battery life being in this networking event. All right, so those people that are low in woo, we've got a couple of 31s. We've got 34 on here. It may look the opposite. All of a sudden, your just battery life is at zero in this kind of environment. I certainly can identify that. I also have a picture of a chameleon, right? So the woo has often been referred to as the chameleon strength. Why? Because it can morph. It can shape shift a little bit based on the environment that's there, because it really desires to be accommodating to whomever it's encountering in that moment, right? Kind of shape shift. So if you're an outsider, you're looking in, it's like, who's that guy talking? Like, why is all of a sudden he have a British accent over there? Like, where'd that come from? Like, there's a morphing that can kind of go on with this. I also have an image of a bee on a flower, right? Because that's kind of how you can see woo, the person hi woo at the networking event. They don't stay in one group. They go from flower to flower to flower to person to person to person. They just kind of they're there for a little bit and then they move on, move on, move on. But they're not the people that are in the corner of the room sticking with the same crowd for the entire night. I see that handshake, that extended handshake, the open palm that's there. I'm trusting, I'm inviting you into a relationship with me. And I am willing to do whatever needs to happen to open you to that relationship, the prospect, the good prospects of that relationship with me. I desire to build rapport with you. And then finally, I have the person at the front desk, beautiful woman who's there, just very inviting, light, airy. She's got a smile on her face. And this can kind of be where woo, you can find woo either in the parish. They're the ones, hopefully, they're the ones that are greeting people. It's not the people that are, number 34 woo that are like, good, please, I'm going to hide with the ushers over here while everybody's coming into the parish. But like those people that, beat the greet, right? That's what they're doing. The first one, they're going to come at you and they're going to make a space for you. All right. What else, folks? What else can we add to this picture? What part of this picture resonates with you? Marty, I'm going to look to you to chime in here first. Janae, I certainly want to hear from you as well. Justin, always a space for you, even though today it's you're at 29, right? But you always got some great insights. Catherine at 33, you're not off the hook. We'd love to hear from that 33 perspective as well. What do we got, Marty?
Wow, where do I begin? Woo, right?
Woo and communication.
This is my jam.
Here we go, Marty.
So, I mean, woo, this is my jam. This is my bang zone. This is my bread and butter. This is what I do. I woo. This is my superpower. It's my little woo ditty. You know what's so beautiful about this? I would add two images, the two on my wall back there, the biggest wooers in the universe, Jesus and Mary, who wooed me some years ago from a disordered and destructive way of wooing in my addictions, right? Which many of you will come to learn as you get to know me in Metanoia Catholic and my journey from addiction to recovery to abundant living and freedom to becoming energetic and efficacious and inspiring hope to others. But it all began with Jesus and Mary wooing me and teaching me how to woo in the right way. And I just love it. I mean, it really is like a new superpower. And not to sound cliche, as I think I've said this on other episodes, or at least one other, it's a great responsibility, and with great it's a great power, and with great power comes great responsibility. Because I know in the past I've used it in the wrong way to manipulate and get what I want, and today I use it to inspire hope in others, especially others who are struggling, right, with their own disordered desires and habits. So yeah, this is awesome. This is an awesome topic. We need these kind of people, right, to bring people out of that being stuck, right, in themselves, in the darkness, in the bitterness, right? And yeah. So
amazing. Yeah, and even that you said they came to me and they met me. Jesus and Mary met me where I was. And again, there's that spirit of accommodation that's behind that woo, where it's like, I'm not afraid to come into your space, right? To morph myself to come into your space, right? And we can even see kind of where how can we do that in a way that doesn't completely change who we are, but it allows us to meet the person where they're at. I mean, certainly the Blessed Mother didn't stop being the Blessed Mother, and Jesus didn't stop being the Savior of the world when he came down and he met you in your place of sin and darkness, right? What does that mean? What does it look like? And it can start to even inform our questions that we'll get to later on. How does woo show up virtuously? Right. Awesome, Marty. Janae.
Yeah, so woo being at number 4 for me, it comes after 3 strategic thinking themes, which I think definitely flavor woo for me. As far as ideas that kind of flowed through my head as you were showing these word pictures, one idea, which it's funny that Marty mentioned that about, I had this image of like myself, like kind of kneeling down, and there's like a child like kind of hiding around a corner, and it's like I'm coaxing, I'm like making that child feel comfortable enough to like come out. It's like that idea of like helping someone come out of hiding, like come out of who they and of who they're afraid to kind of be. And I love that. I love a little bit more intimacy. I love networking events too, but my idea would be maybe more of a dinner party where it's like I don't necessarily know everyone well there, but I love to like spend maybe 20 minutes with a person or 20 minutes with a person here and there. I don't necessarily care about hitting everybody there, but I think that's what's interesting about strengths is how it can really be, I say flavored a lot. It's influenced by the ones that are around it. So I definitely need my alone time as well as I really need that extrovert time. And so sometimes those can be really competing for me depending on my mood. So somebody may be listening that feels the same way. So yeah, that's some of the ideas that I thought of, or an opening flower, like a flower that's in the process of blooming. So those are just some thoughts.
So you're the flower, or you're helping that flower
I'm helping
to
the
bloom?
flower.
You're
Yeah.
helping the flower to bloom, to open up. Like, that's great imagery that's there. Awesome. Awesome. Jane. Number 4, woo.
Yeah, so good morning. I have to say when I took my strengths, this was a real healing strength for me because just because of my own background. My parents were military, and in 8th grade I was sent to England to a boarding school. I was the second, there's only one other American. And I remember I was in 8th grade, I was 12 years old, but I remember making the conscious decision of choosing to meet every single girl in this class, in this school. There was maybe 300 kids, all girls. And so I literally would stop people, we'd be in little lines, and, we'd be crossing, going through class, and I would stop. I'm like, "You're Carla, right?" They just thought I was this weird American. But I see now, years later, I have the words to put to it. And I'm like, oh, this is what I was doing. I was actually wooing myself to feeling, because I was in a completely different country. There's only 5 Catholics. I was very far from home. This is way before computers. My parents didn't even live in America, so I didn't even, like, they would ask me about American questions. I didn't, like, Starsky and Hutch. This is in the 70s. I had no reference point. So, like, literally, I was like dropped, I was airborne. Like, I dropped into, and I had to survive. And, praise God that he gave me this at 4. And I don't, that was totally Holy Spirit. And I've used that as a skill wherever I'm in a new situation. Like and part of that story is that I was given, another gal came in, another young woman, 2 weeks later, and she was assigned in my room, and I was like given the mission to take care of her because she cried for 2 weeks in every class, 24/7, and I would just nurture her. And that's kind of what I do. And I actually teach my young people, my young youth group people about that. I say, the next person that walks in the room, you go welcome them because you're 5 minutes ahead. And it's been a skill, I didn't realize until now with the strengths that it's a natural strength, but I honed the strength so that, because I was military, my husband's military. I'm not really worried about my favorite place in the world is an airport. I love watching people. I love finding people. I love meeting new people. Yeah, so it's just interesting how the Lord has given me this gift, has been able for me to use the gift unknowingly, and now because of the strengths, I have words that makes sense to me. Like my family was always like, oh, you're such a social butterfly. And yes, I was always the airhead or the superficial one because I fleet from party to party. But in reality, now I can see how it's a strength to
Right.
use.
You've got that language to be able to name it as a strength now. And it's interesting too, James, is kind of listen. I want to hear Justin. I'd love to bring you on here as well to kind of give some comments. Jane, that what you described was not only was you had this talent that you're realizing, reflecting back on that time in the boarding school, but also the Lord gave you some unique opportunities to discover it, right? And in the moment, it didn't necessarily seem like that was something that was a situation that you might have chosen for yourself, but the Lord orchestrates it. And here now you're equipped to be able to look back. Now that you have the language, you can look back and you can kind of reinterpret that memory, what was going on. The Lord putting in a position where he knew that you had the gifts and the grace to be able to thrive and to be able to, in this case, even with your high empathy, being able to minister to this young girl that was there and feeling homesick perhaps, and just be there and abide with her. And it's amazing how when we step into our gifts, we think that we're filling space, but actually what we're doing is we're creating space for other people to step into theirs. Justin, from your 29 perspective, it sits at 17 for me. So not too low, but not too high, but you 29, man.
Yeah, so I hear for these people who like parties that's a common one. That's the image that often comes to mind. Anywhere from like what Janae was saying to the large family gathering, to the cocktail party, to the grand exquisite ball. Where I'm sure if you have high woo insignificance, you're probably getting into that area. But yeah, just that. Let's throw a party. That's what I think woo lives for. Let's celebrate. Let's be open. Let's let our hair down, or wear the fancy dresses and the fancy suits, and almost a social chance to play at being the best version of ourselves, even for a moment, with others. It's kind of what I see. And
Justin, what's your party situation like when you show up to the party with 29 woo? What's it like for you?
So first of all, it's very unlikely I'll be by myself. So probably gravitating near whoever, either the person who invited me or the person I'm coming with, my spouse or friend or whatnot. So I have all low social or influencing themes, but a fair number of relationship building themes. So I'm looking for a reason to connect with someone in particular. If I'm going to connect with someone, not just, hey, how are you? Hi, I'll do the names, I'll do the social introduction. But if you're waiting on me to continue the conversation, it's going to get awkward really, really quick. So, yeah, so it's not that I mind parties or, and it's great to be invited. Of course, everyone loves a chance to go, but I'm not, if I get one or two in a year, I'm doing really good. I'm not feel like I'm missing anything,
Now is Jen high in the woo? Do you find that she drags you to the parties or bride?
No, we're not. Okay. No, neither of us are very high in that. So if it's a gathering of people that we don't know a lot about or close with, it would probably tend to feel more like obligation to go than something we would like be anxious or excited to do type of situation. If we feel like we need to go, we'll do it, and we will do our best to have a good time, and we probably will. I mean, it's not like we hate parties, or I think very few people hate parties, despite the stereotypes for introverts, but it's just they're draining. So
yeah, it kind of, your battery gets a little bit lower there.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things Jane mentioned that occurred to me also is I'm thinking of that almost stereotypical happy youth group leader I think, is someone who is high in the woo, that, they can walk into a room full of teenagers and just get them all intrigued, engaged, and going. And that's beautiful. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
me, but it's
There's
beautiful.
Mama Jane, the youth group leader, jumping in there. Talia, you made a comment here. Justin, thank you. Talia, you made a comment as well in the chat about reciprocation, right? Something that it's not just like reaching out and creating the relationship, but desiring something in return. Can you pop on here and share a little bit what you mean?
Yeah, so as I'm looking at the pictures, I'm like, yeah, those are great. But then, and maybe it's the battery one where they're at the business or convention together, where it does show everyone else's batteries filled. But I think with these images, I'm desiring more of like showing that it's like actually someone is actually reciprocating it, and like, wow, like it's so great to also meet you, or a bigger smile or something, maybe someone leaning in a little bit more. So that was what was missing for me. But I'm also really high in relationships, so majority of my top 10 are in relationships. So I'm wondering if that goes with the woo. But I know that woo, has a strong desire to be liked and for it to be reciprocated. So
Right.
that's kind of what stood out to me, is like, if I'm going to put in the effort, which is easy, I would say more natural effort, it's still requiring something, and there's a chance to be taken when you do it. And so if you go in for like the handshake or like welcoming someone and someone doesn't reciprocate back, it really affects, it can really affect, I would say, the person with woo, because you don't want to come off as fake, and that's not the point at all. So I think that's what stood out to me with these images.
Yeah, certainly. It certainly wants to be to be liked, and think of it in terms of also this. This isn't falling into a relationship theme. It's falling in. It's in the influencer domain, and if we go back to that influencer domain podcast, where does influencer domain typically? Where do they desire to rest? It's in the movement of others. So there's somebody outside of you that has been moved, perhaps emotionally, perhaps from the way that they think, moved into action. And so here it's an influencer theme. And certainly, yes, adjacent themes can have some sort of a impact on the way that maybe your that nuance of your motivation for your woo. But I think that there's you mentioned here, I smile and they smile back, right? That feedback loop is so important for those influencer themes, because again, they desire to see other people moved. And in this case, it's like, I've come down and I've accommodated you, and now I see the smile, and that smile means what, Talia? What does that smile mean?
It means that they're open to what you're offering.
Awesome. Okay. Open to what you're offering. Cool. Leslie, you got a hand up. And you are what, number
okay,
10?
so I am number 10 with woo, and immediately the party with the batteries related to that. That is, I have to have that to build my energy level. Typically mine though will be in two situations. I'm a lot like Mama Jane, where I love airports, complete strangers. Oh, I love that kind of environment. But I also love intimate circles, intimate friendships, and that feedback in both those environments. The chameleon was interesting because I've heard that terminology before, but for me, I always use the word masks. Like, I always felt like I hide behind masks to match whatever the social engagement is that's in the room or what's going on. And the bee, I'm really glad, I can't remember, I think it was Jenna that said something, but I know one person in particular, he must have it like number one, because he's kind of known for in a party jumping from, I mean, you just never see him. He's always around. I don't tend to do that. I like to stay with certain groups within a party. And then the open hand, it's interesting you said that, because the other day someone came up to me, they said, you love to hug, and whenever you hug, you come at people with with open hands. And I thought, wow, I wonder if that's my woo that's coming through there. but yeah, I relate to a lot of this. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay. And Lori, we'll hear from, thanks so much, Leslie. Lori, we'll hear from you, and then we're going to jump forward. Where does it land for you, Lori? It was high for you, wasn't it? Surprisingly high, 31.
Yes. And this is so interesting because I'm the first person to shake someone's hand in a group, and I'm a hugger. Um, and at church, I'm like in the welcoming committee. So, and everybody always says I'm so friendly and welcoming. But I do understand a little bit about what you're talking about because I tend to go to networking groups and I stick with one, like the people I know,
Okay.
the people I feel comfortable with. And I also noticed that even though I'm super welcoming, like I also have sometimes a problem having like a complete conversation. Like, beyond the hi, how are you doing? And how's the kids? Like sometimes I think it's because I want to jump in and lead the conversation or run the conversation, or I'm a real high influencer.
Your high
So
command. High command is
yeah,
there.
and so
Yep.
I take command, where I would think that a woo like would share more like they would just enjoy being in the group, or from what you're saying, they're more comfortable in the group, or right away I got to take charge, right?
Yeah. They fill the
So
space
I
in a
found
different
this to
way.
be really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Something also that, thanks, Larry. Something also before we jump into kind of the next slide here, that is, I remember Simon Hurry bringing this up. And so because woo can be so that chameleon strength where they can morph and they can shapeshift to kind of accommodate where somebody's at. Oftentimes, especially if they're high belief, they find themselves desiring to be around people who share their values. Why? Because you don't want to morph too far, right? Morphing, changing and getting too far away from yourself can feel out of integrity. Okay, that's going to trigger high belief, but also it can be kind of exhausting. All of a sudden going from one room, where everybody thinks the same way that you do, and then now you're in another room where they're thinking the opposite. Think of like jumping from one political party to another, or listening to one CNN and then going to Fox News, like these polar opposite kind of environments. How that can feel a little bit, all of a sudden I'm here and it's just like, yeah, I really gotta, in order to enter into this, I need to move to a place that I'm not really comfortable because it's so far away from my values. So that's often part of the ideal conditions for the person that's high with woo, because they can change so much and they so naturally do it, that they often don't want to suddenly step into groups that's very much missionary territory for them. Okay. Because it's going to be quite a bit of work. I'm going to move forward here. Leslie, I see your hands up. I don't know if that's a new thing that you want to share, but I want to jump into just the motivation. And so it's kind of my little strengths nerds channel where I get other people to kind of pour into me in this. Thank you so much for the help. The motivation for the woo. All right. And I want to get everybody's take on this, but perhaps woo desires to rest in moving another to openness. Moving another to openness. And if that's the case, like moving another to openness to receive something that is good. All right, we can see, Marty, you shared, in your time before your recovery, right? Where you said you were abusing your woo, you were moving another to openness, but was it an openness to something good? Versus now moving another to openness now in recovery, Marty, to something that is truly true, good, and beautiful. Marty, I don't know, I'll create space for you to be able to jump in here if you like, but anybody raise a hand. that wants to kind of comment, build? Does this resonate? Did I nail it? Right? Me and the strengths nerds, did we figure it out?
Yeah, that line right there really hits the spot for me. Before recovery and faith, right? I went from a slave to my addictions and a unorthodox heathen, right, to a sober heathen, to experiencing that wooing love of Mary and Jesus, becoming Catholic 18 years ago, right? And before that, right, it was moving another to openness for selfish wants, right? Disordered desires. When God, wooed me, right, and transformed me, it became a desire to move others to openness so that they can experience that amazing love and woo-ness, right, that God and our Mother Mary offers us. And so, like, and when we, this, in my experience, when we line our will up with God's will, wow, to be able to move in that direction, to want to always, reach that level of openness, in helping other people open up, right? It's always so that God can fill them. And that's one of my favorite things about Metanoia Catholic. That's what we're doing. We are channels of God's grace, right? We are leading people to have that metanoia experience with God. And I can't think of a better strength, of course I'm biased, than woo.
I'm thinking as I hear you say that, Marty, and like I would woo people to be open to partake in the very addiction that I was struggling with. And like where you think of wooing, like in a virtuous sense, is I'm wooing this person and I'm accommodating this person. I'm going down and meeting them where they're at so that I might open them to receive something good that brings them to a new and better place. Talia talked about, I smile, I see them smile back. They've risen to a higher place, where I wonder if there's, in the vicious sense, if the woo here opening them to receive something that is not good so that they might condescend down to where you are, they might descend down to you are and meet you in your place. So rather than I'm going to condescend down to meet you where you are, I'm going to lure you to be open to something that is going to bring you down to my level. And we can see kind of a diabolic inversion here of woo being lived out. Marty, what do you got?
I was just thinking, the deceiver, right, who's probably perfected that kind of disordered wooing, right? He wooed Eve in the Garden of Eden and tricked her into denying God, right? And so, yeah, I think we can see, that opposite effect when wooing becomes disordered, and how the enemy was able to woo even Adam in the garden, and how powerfully destructive, right, that strength can be when disordered. I like Christopher West sometimes use that analogy of a rocket. When our passions are ordered in the right way, it can lift us off into outer space. But when pointed in the wrong direction, it can create mass destruction.
A mass explosion of self-destruction, as I hear him say many times. Marty, thank you so much. Jane, you got a hand up.
Yeah, Marty, that was so profound. This is totally God, Holy Spirit. Thank you. Because the disorder, I personally had an experience with someone else that had woo in a work environment. But this person was so manipulative, and I didn't realize, because the way she wooed me for her own purpose, and it wasn't for my honor, it wasn't for my dignity, and it wasn't for the mission that I thought we were on. It was specifically only for her purpose and for her glory and for her advantage. And so, yes, Marty, I'm so happy that you brought this up, because, like you said, with great power brings great responsibility. And so if someone has high woo, I mean, I have also high positivity, second. So that's probably where God created that space where my intention was always positive, back in the boarding school and in any environment that I've been in. My desire is always for the good of the other. But when the desire is not the good of the other, but for my own vanity or my own power, my own disorder, woo can really wound others. And it was such a, it's taken me a long time, because the distrust that I had, because I was completely blindsided.
Right. You can see where it really can be the
Yes.
shadow side can show up with that. I hear one of the comments I want to highlight. Corey wrote in. She said, "Wow, just like Jesus, down to us versus the devil, up to down." Yeah. So you can see that diabolic inversion. Jesus comes down to us so that he might raise us up, right? And Satan is always trying to do the opposite here. And so I think what I'm hearing with you, Marty, with you, Jane, it's that question we ask ourselves a lot of the time in coaching: where's the spotlight on right now? And the spotlight is on me, right? This relationship, my woo, is showing up to make some sort of accommodation for me, to create space and for me, or for the openness of this person to come to where I'm at. Rather than to give this person something good to elevate them. That might be kind of a good thing to consider. Catherine, I know you said your husband's high in woo, right? And it's not necessarily where you land. I think you're 33. Rob's the winner today at 34. Woo. So I'd love to hear from you too, Rob. But Catherine, you're in a close second.
Yeah. I just first wanted to just mention to all of you wooers, like, what a gift it is. So being married to someone that is high in woo and not being high in woo myself, I see like just what a gift he is in that way to those around him and to me, because it's not something that comes naturally to me. And so like, like you have the battery levels. So like, like in social situations, he'll be the one shaking the hands and like making the social connections. And it enables me to be more at ease, because I'm like, he broke the ice. Now I can continue the conversation. Because for me, it's that like breaking of the ice that is hard. So I really actually resonate being low in woo with this moving another to openness. When someone's already open, that's when I feel comfortable coming in. But my husband, who is very high in woo, is like really great at, breaking the ice and like doing that, moving another to openness. He was a youth minister. So Justin mentioned that. He was a youth minister, the very high energy youth minister. He used to do sales and marketing, cold calls, like that was, but he was very good at that and still is very good at that with a lot of high energy. So I just wanted to like affirm those of you that have it, because it really, like even in social situations and even in small like dinner settings, like Janae was talking about with people that we might not know, like he's able to open the conversation. And then what I love to do is bring it deeper. But I can't bring it deeper, or I don't feel confident, or it takes a lot of energy for me to bring it deeper. Or I don't have as much energy to bring it deeper if I'm also the one that's having to like break the ice. Does that make sense? So like enables me to show up more in my strengths when he's able to use his. So
yeah, I think I even have later on, and I do at the end, it's that scripture from 1 Corinthians. It's like, I think it's like Apollo watered, I planted. Like there's this whole process where we're like, it starts with just opening the soil, right? And we think we often, that metanoia moment, before you can really plant a new seed, that new thought, that new belief, the soil needs to be open to it, lest it falls on the hardened path or the thorn bushes or the shallow soil. And so woo has this uncanny ability to just open the person, open the bride, right? We even have that old Hebrew word nekeva, right? Which is the old Hebrew word for woman, which means to be opened, right? And it's hearkening back to some of the stuff we learned at TOB. So there's something beautiful about this nekeva, this very feminine openness that opens the person to receive something that's good. And here we see a glimmer of this beautiful spousal analogy that John Paul II would speak of, where Christ the bridegroom comes to fill the bride, with divine life, right? We see this in and certainly a literal context of the Blessed Mother being filled with the Holy Spirit through her openness, her nekava, her femininity, her fiat. And boy, oh boy, the beauty that can come forth from an open heart that's open to receive what is good. Amazing. And thank you for the affirming words there, Catherine, of somebody that's not necessarily low, to be able to see, but even the language that you used, to see how like your husband has this beautiful ability to open people so that you might come forth and take the relationship even deeper. So you got the 1-2 punch, you guys together, to really build some great relationships. All right, let's pivot over to where we have our scripture reference. Again, we want to learn how to live these things virtuously. And Robert, I see your hand up there, and I want to give you a chance to kind of come in here at some point. So I won't forget about you. We're going to jump in the scripture reference. And so for everybody listening, it's John 16:12-13a. It says, at the sight of the crowds, his heart was moved with pity for them, because they were troubled and abandoned like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. So ask the master of the harvest to send out laborers for his harvest. Again, we're looking at scripture to inform our conversation. How might we live in this strength of woo so that we might open the bride? Right? Sin closes us in on one another. We're cut off from relationship. We don't trust. We're suspicious. And woo and that condescension comes down. And you see, you're not talking down to somebody. You're face to face, and you're looking at them, and you're seeing them. You're holding the space for them. And that act that creates kind of the initial relationship that can start to say, hey, you don't have to move from where you're at for me to love you. I can come right where you're at. I'm not going to demand anything from you. I'm going to meet you where you're at. And the power of loving somebody where they're at. Sheep without a shepherd. The shepherd just has this ability. The shepherd's the one that goes and finds the lost sheep. He goes where the sheep are. He lives with the sheep. We have the phrase that we always referred to our Bishop Scharfenberger. He's a shepherd that smells like a sheep, because he was just so familial. And there's something that was beautiful about the way that he ministered as our diocesan shepherd. All right. So here he's seeing the sheep, the lost sheep of the house. They don't have shepherds. Why? The Pharisees are not coming down. They're not condescending down. What are the Pharisees doing? They're condemning. They're elevating themselves, and they're condemning. They're tying up heavy burdens, and they're not lending any help to actually carry these things. So what is woo? I mean, the diabolic inversion of woo would be something self-righteous, I would say. Finger wagging. Marty, what do you see? How's this speaking to you?
So I think this scripture alone is a great refutation for that appearance of phoniness and shallowness. When I walk into a room, just because I'm going from person to person to person and not spending what might be considered quality time with just a few people, when I walk into a room, I see a lot of people who are in need of God's grace, who are closed, right? Because a lot of people walk into a room with a lot of people, and they have their masks up and they have their shields up. And I feel called to just go and meet everybody, to break the ice, to bring down the barriers, right? And with that almost subconscious knowledge, I didn't think about it until I read this scripture passage. I mean, it's just hitting me hard right now, that thought that the harvest is abundant. There are many people in this room who are craving love and God's mercy and God's grace, right? But there are few, right? Few laborers. And so my mission, based on my strength, is to go and to meet that person, right? To hopefully create a space of openness using my other gifts, which are high communication, right? So boy, I can really strike up a conversation at ease, right? Connectedness, which I think really, helps me to find that balance, positivity, and then belief as that anchor, my number 5, that allows me not to be that chameleon in a shallow, phony way like I used to be in high school. Especially, I used to fit into every cloud. I mean, my most enjoyable, challenging goal in high school was to fit into every group in high school. And boy, I did a good job. If there would have been a reward for that, I got most spirited, right? But if there would have been a reward for fitting into every, the jocks, the preps, the band nerds, so on and so forth, I would have won it. But having that belief and going through that transformation, when I walk into a room, it's just second nature for me to want to go and be that person that welcomes them, to say, hey, it's okay, you're in a safe place.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. And what I'm hearing with that, Marty, is even your call to be a coach and what the coach does. They hold the space, right? They're going down, they're meeting the person, they're suspending judgment, and they're just holding the space for them. I'm going to keep pressing on, folks, just because I'm aware of time that we've got here. But take this, consider to ponder it. As you move into the conversation here on the virtuous side, the vicious side. All right. So again, what does woo do so well? It creates space for somebody to be open to receive something that's good. And so the virtuous side, I can create a welcoming environment that meets other people where they are and opens them to something good. Okay. So that's where that interdependence is going on. I'm a gift. I'm showing up as a gift. I've got something good to give. And you can see the person with woo. If you want to really strengthen that, come to be a student of what the good is. Ask questions that come to understand what the desire is of that person that you are wooing, so that you may will that good desire, assuming it is good, will that good desire with them, right? And create that accommodation. Where it leads to kind of that independence is perhaps finding a person who is just like me, right? And again, this is kind of like a self-serving woo, where it's, I need somebody to kind of, I just want to be around those people that are just like me, because I really don't want to move. And I'm not necessarily, I enjoy the connection that's there and the satisfaction, the talking, but we're just kind of in our cliquish environment. There's no growth. We're just accommodating one another. In some ways, this can start to even lean into a codependent kind of expression of woo. Leading to dependence. I need others to make space to welcome me so I can feel good. You can see again this inversion of it. We talked earlier about, no, I'm not going to condescend down to you. I'm going to have you condescend down to me so that I don't have to move. You're going to be the one that's accommodating for me so I can feel that connection that I desire to experience and the rapport that I desire to experience with woo. And I want you to be open, but I don't necessarily want to move. Okay. And then that leads to that codependence. I'm going to be the life of the party, and I'm going to get to wear this party mask everyone enjoys. So it's like, hey, Helen's the life of the party. Let's bring her in here. So I'm the life of the party. I get to wear the party mask everyone else enjoys. Yeah, but I'm not really seeing myself, and you can see some of these people that show up as the life of the party and they put that mask on and it feels kind of natural to them. But at the end of the day, it's so shallow that it's just paper thin, right? They're a shell of who they are. How's this hitting with people? See some thumbs up. Any comments on this? All right. Can anybody see even some expressions of where it leads to that independence, that vicious side? I think the good test here, folks, is the spotlight test. Who's the focus on? Are we inviting somebody up to something good? Are they open to it? We don't invite them before they're open. That's another way that woo can go vicious. It's saying, like, you're not calling down to them in the hole and saying, coming up, you're getting in the hole with them and saying, are you ready to climb out? I can show you the way. I've climbed out of this hole before, right? Gosh, Marty, and I hear just even as you're kind of working through your niche work, Marty, and coming alongside other men in recovery, you've been in that hole before, right? And so you know how to hold the space, be in the hole with them, but you also know a way out. The Lord has revealed that to you, and that's nothing arrogant. That's just a testimony to the beautiful gift that God has been in his grace in your life. Janae.
Yeah, I think this is really fitting as a number 4 wooer. I think I've been this way for my whole life, pretty much, leading to dependence. Like, in a time in my life when I was really struggling as a kid, it's like I needed to feel good. And so like, I just wanted to like be that chameleon for everybody all the time, because I needed, there's so much trauma going on. Like I needed to feel good, essentially. And so like, and then it just led to such a habit that I developed that I didn't even know what the name for it was until, later on, when I started seeing, even more just recently with strengths work in the last year, where it's like, oh yeah, like that's what was going on right now. But what a gift, like you were saying to Jane, like what a gift that I had those gifts as a child, because it really allowed me to thrive or survive even in a time where, I handled it in the best way that I knew how. And it's been able to go into adulthood and start to mature into virtue and understanding what virtue looks like instead of viciousness. And the spotlight effect is a great thing to keep in mind for me, because it can easily shift into that for any of us that struggle with it. Like it's like, I need this thing right now. Like I might be maybe having a bad day. And so it's like, I want to find this thing that makes me feel good, or I just want to talk to the people that are just like me. And I don't want to branch out and I don't want to meet new people. So anyway, I think this is really good. It's been a beautiful conversation today.
And there's still a space to be able to kind of stay in that area, right? But again, it starts to kill the missional, and that may be a strong word, kill or degrade the apostolic mission of the church if suddenly we just cloister ourselves and we say, hey, Christendom is still good. It still works. The Christendom model still works. And it's like, the mindset really isn't there. The other thing I'm thinking is this: one of the techniques that we use at Metanoia Catholic, we train our coaches in this emotional processing work, where we're inviting Jesus into a space where perhaps we feel unloved, right? And that's what woo does. It comes into a space, it meets the person where they're at and loves them there. Well, if we feel inclined to kind of show up in these vicious sides of woo, maybe we won't just try to force ourselves to have the spotlight on them, but maybe there's an invitation to healing. Maybe there's a place where you desire for somebody to meet you. Why not invite the man that has descended into hell itself? He's in all places, right? I'm talking about Jesus Christ, and he's got the power to actually lift you up, transform that place of, where you feel unloved, to a place of great contribution, where you actually you receive the very gift that you can then pass on to somebody else, meeting them in their place. Leslie.
Well, wow. Okay, real fast. Fascinating. This is like hitting so many points for me. In my entire life and career, I have loved network marketing groups. Never done anything with them, but I often think something you hit on, Matt, about all of it, maybe finding the person, the vicious cycle is finding that one person. How about finding that one group and just wanting to stay within that one group because it's just comfortable and I don't want to venture out of that. That is for sure my vicious cycle. I see that a lot. So that was fascinating.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we can see. And as long as we're continuing to keep that close tie with Jesus, it's hard. He's always going to keep us moving. And so it can be hard to be stagnant. So that's where it starts, not necessarily changing the circumstances, forcing yourself out of the group, but entering into that space of Jesus. Where does he want to go? Where does he want to woo you? Where is he desiring to meet you today? So again, that virtuous mindset with woo, I like this. Oftentimes woo can have some judgment on itself, like, hey, I'm not going deep enough. Well, we looked at 1 Corinthians 3:6-9. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. And if we kind of follow the rest of that verse, we can see that woo, just the same way that, who is it that commented before? Catherine, shared the way that her husband has a way of opening up the conversation, and then she could take it a little bit deeper. Woo, you can kind of understand that at some point you might be there to pass the person off to somebody else for them to do the continued watering or even the planting after you've opened the soil, so to speak. All right, so that's that virtuous mindset, seeing yourself fitting in to the mission in the body of Christ. That vicious mindset, morph to me, please. I don't want to move. You accommodate me, right? That's kind of, please come down, right? And it's a bit of a self-righteous, or come up to me where I think I am, but I'm not going to meet you where you're at. I need action to be energized. That could lead to that dependent, vicious side of woo, where you're just kind of there to consume others for your own energizing. And then finally, others want the life of the party and I'll deliver, right? They want this. I know it's a mask, but you know what? I'll give the people what they want. And they get what they want. I get what I want, but nobody is seen. That's always seems to be what happens in a codependent relationship. Neither party is really being seen. Neither party is being honest. And the incentives are for both parties to remain unseen and hidden and dishonest. Okay. Closing thoughts. Leslie, I see your hand is up. I do want to make space for Robert, right? Our number 34, our winner. Robert, can you share a little bit of closing thoughts? Can I make some space for you, man?
I like parties. I always have. And yet I've always shown up with a sense of dependence that I couldn't really analyze. And I'm really glad to be to have happened to have come to this particular strengths training to kind of flesh out what that problem is, in that weird dependence that I've noticed but never articulated. I think I pretty much would show up to social events with some kind of emptiness that would not be opened up until someone broke the ice. I think that pattern really fits well.
And you know what? It may not necessarily be you that has to break the ice and lean into that number 34. Arguably, that's not going to be really perhaps where the Lord is inviting you. But again, it's great self-awareness that I'm hearing with you, Robert, and even just allowing yourself not to be the icebreaker, right? But maybe recognizing where the spotlight was on yourself a little indulgently there.
I think I overused my wife's generosity in making up for that stuff. So I'm kind of finding myself needing to figure this out on my own, and I'm really seeing with the result. I'm seeing Woo down there 34 and going, oh, that explains a lot. What is it? But is there hope for me? I mean, can I alter any of this?
Is there hope for you? I mean, here's the thing with strengths, like your lesser themes, your bottom 5. It's like, what do we do with those? We don't try to move them into our top 10, right? It's just like, why? It's almost unkind to demand something of ourselves where we don't necessarily have that natural inclination. I mean, you could do it. All of these themes all of these talents are accessible. It's just going to require a lot more energy. And you're never going to be in a situation, I would argue, Robert, where you're going to go to the networking event and it's going to fill your battery life. It's just not how you've been designed. And that's okay, because you've been designed to do other things. And it's more so, how do I live, not so more in my lesser themes or improve my lesser themes, but the mindset of how do I really lean into the strengths and the contribution of my top 10, my top 15, because that's going to be where I can really create the value, and I'll experience the communion that I think Woo perhaps is going to give me. But I'll do it in a way that's not exhausting. And it really is a way that God's grace shows up in very profound ways in my life. Robert, thanks, man. Marty, I'm going to turn it over to you too. And then Emily.
So 2 thoughts came to mind. We mentioned earlier, when we use our strengths in selfish ways, it's just going back to the enemy, right? He's a strength distinguisher, right? Brings people down, closes people off. Whereas us wooers, we are strength igniters, right? If our superpower is to open people up, it's not to make people like us, to make more wooers. It's to open them up so that God can bless them and help them to grow in their own unique call to sanctity with their own unique strengths. And so that was a new thought I have. My superpower as a wooer is to open people up so that their strengths, right, can blossom and grow. It's just like the bee that goes from flower to flower. I don't know if you guys ever see that old movie, Bees, with the funny comedian guy, I forget his name, had his own TV show, but
Seinfeld.
He got them to basically go on strike, and all the flowers and all the trees and all the grass died, right? And so you figured out, no, bees have to go from flower to flower to flower to keep opening them up, right? And so I look at the wooers, the same thing. We're not going from person to person to person because we're shallow and we're falling. It's that we have this ability to open people up just enough so that their own strengths can shine, whatever that might be.
And there's a beautiful cross-pollination that's happening. And again, there's that spousal analogy that's coming out and staring us right in the face. Emily, thank you, Marty.
So woo is 31 for me, so it's very low. But this has like really helped me to have a newfound appreciation for woo. I had a lot of I think preconceived notions of like what that really was or meant, and I always felt like I needed to like live that out better, and then it would kind of go into this like cycle of shame when I like couldn't live it out, or like I didn't think I was doing a good enough job. So just to be able to like confidently say like, no, that's actually not one of my strengths, and that's okay. That like actually one of my top strengths is relator. So it's like, no, why don't like I live more in that, like let somebody else who can live out in that space better, like get the people excited, and then I can come in and like help like really connect with them in a much deeper way where I can live actually more authentically to myself, and I can show up more authentically to that person. Because when I'm trying to live in that space where I'm, not feeling very comfortable, I'm not actually showing up super authentic. So I can relate a lot to you, Rob, and what you were saying, just feeling that like, I like being dependent upon other people when you go into like social situations where there's a lot of people, like totally overwhelms me. I'm the one that kind of like, I observe a lot. I observe everybody and what they're doing. But I'm not the first one to speak up. And I used to beat myself up over it. And now kind of like really understanding that that's not my space, like, and that's okay. And like giving myself permission to not beat myself up over that is, I think, a big thing. So
I love the word, that's not my space. What that does simultaneously, it's merciful to you, and it's also merciful to somebody else that can fill that space, that is their space. Because if we step into a space that's not ours, we're denying that space to somebody that their gift really lies there. Folks, when we step into, and this is the beautiful reciprocation of what happens when we step into our area of strength and we kind of say, okay, this is where I can make the contribution. We make space for someone else to live more in their own vocation. That's what's the beautiful part of vocation, folks, is it always creates, when you live in your personal vocation, and strengths can certainly be part of that, how you live out your vocation. But when you step in your vocation, it automatically creates space for somebody else. Why would God design it to be any other way? Do you think God would make it so as soon as you live over here, you deny somebody their ability to live in their vocation? Does that sound like a body that's living together, or does that sound like a house that's divided against itself? It will fall, as we read in the scriptures. But that's when we step into who we are. And so it's that first question, who am I? And we can start to live from that. It changes our environment by making space for people to claim their own identity, to claim their own strengths, and live in that all the more. So folks, everybody, thank you so much for all of the sharing and all this today. I hope this has been helpful. We're going to be back on track with our podcast. I can't remember what we got next week. Maybe somebody else already knows. But show up and you'll see what it is. And folks, if you want to be part of these conversations, join us in the Metanoia Catholic Academy. You just go to CatholicCoaching.com. We do this every week at 12:30. And we want this to be a resource for those that are employing strengths in a Christian environment, different organizations, whether it's a parish or church community. We want to be able to have this conversation and bring the faith into it with a firm understanding of who the human person is, and therefore how do we live these strengths out in a way that helps us to become fully alive, fully who we are, and build up the kingdom. So thanks for listening. Share it with your friends, like and subscribe if you're listening on a podcast or you're watching on YouTube, and we'll see you next time.